Hey, we've got a reader's question today, and I'm excited to share the question and my thoughts on this. So I hope that you benefit from this. This reader's question is similar to a lot of what I hear from classroom teachers all over the U.S. and indeed all over the world. Hi, I'm Dr. Marnie Ginsberg, and it's Reading Simplified, where we work to streamline reading instruction for classrooms or anyone teaching reading to beginners or to anyone struggling reading, and also at the same time accelerate reading achievement. So I got this question from a reader, and it really resonated with me, and I think it might resonate with you, and I'd love to share some thoughts about it. So this reader is a middle school teacher. She said she has 18 students in this one cohort that she's working with, and most are at least 2 grade levels below. Just right there, stop right there. How many of you are, you're feeling that? How many of you have been there? That was actually what brought me to create Reading Simplified, because I was a 6th grade language arts teacher, and my 6th grade students were reading at the 4th grade reading level, and I did not know what to do about that. So she goes on, she says that some are at the 3rd grade level, but not many. I am searching for the best plan to reach these students. Currently, I'm continuing on with how I taught reading last year. I had time for whole group instruction, teaching grade level standards, and using items from our Basel program, Reading Street, from Scott Forsman. I did this for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then used leveled readers for guided reading instruction. Students made small gains last year, but starting the year with them this year, I realized they're still way behind. Again, who is feeling that with our reader? You're doing your best, you're trying to follow a program, you are really concerned about your struggling readers, but yet they're just not moving as rapidly as they need to, right? So I'm just going to check to see if there's any comments, because I'm not seeing them in this setting. Okay. So, hey Shirley and Fatima, welcome. So the Reading Simplified plan, she continues, has caught my attention, and I like what I've read so far. Awesome. When implementing the Reading Simplified plan, do you still provide a time for grade level instruction, or you just meet students where they are and move forward? Okay, that's your first question. How do you prepare students for state assessments? If they're up here, they're supposed to be taking like a 5th or 6th grade test, but they're reading at the 3rd grade or lower level. How do you bridge that gap? Also, how do you address the age appropriateness with materials? Many of our materials for teaching these early skills seem babyish to 4th graders. Okay, so she's got 4th graders. I thought it was 6th graders, sorry. I truly want to do what is best for my students. Yes, that is what I know is true of you all here as well. If you're watching this, that's what you want, right? And that's what I want. But she's kind of in a bind, like she doesn't know what the answer is. And so she was hoping that the 3 sections of the grade level would be mainly what it would take to help these students. So they broke up the students into these sections so they could get their needs met, ideally. But she says, 6 weeks into the school year, I realize more needs to be done. Any suggestions you could provide would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so if you're just popping in, I'm sharing this reader's question. She's got 4th graders, and they're at least 2 grade levels below. Some are at the 3rd grade, but many are not. And she's realizing, despite her best efforts, that they're not moving along rapidly enough. And Karen says she totally agrees. She's constantly feeling overwhelmed. It is so hard when your ideals are to reach everyone and make everyone become great readers, but the tools that you have just don't seem to move them to that point. So she's got a lot of different questions, so I'm going to try to answer them as best I can. And of course, if you have a question, I can maybe see the comments here, and I can help with that along the way. So thanks for popping in, you guys. Hey, Gail and Ravi and Nida? That's a pretty name. Either way, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. So glad you're here. Okay, so her first question was, when implementing the Reading Simplified plan, do you still provide time for grade level instruction, or you just meet students where they are and move them forward? That's a great question. So it's a complex answer, but by and large, given what she's telling me, number one, that they're 4th or 5th grade readers, they're in the 4th grade, but they're 2 or 3 grade levels behind, and it's the beginning of the year, and she has the freedom to do different types of reading instruction. I suggest that she follow the Reading Simplified activities, and there aren't many of them. For those of you who've been following me for a while, you know I just recommend a small handful of activities. So use those activities for a season, maybe just as little as 12 weeks, and move them up the progression that we teach, which is a Reading Simplified tool I'll show you in a second. And then after you've kind of given them the foundation that they're lacking, then maybe you want to fold in a little bit of grade level challenges, give them some text that's maybe out of their reach, and you can call it a close reading session. Maybe do that periodically, once a week, then maybe twice a week. So as you move towards the state assessment, you're still giving them something to reach out ahead of themselves, but at the same time, most of what they're doing is reading something that's at their level or slightly above. So we talk about that a lot in Reading Simplified. In fact, inside the Reading Simplified Academy, this is a membership where I teach the whole system. We kind of challenge teachers to say, actually, when you're working with a group of readers in small group setting, really push them to read way out there, way beyond what they're capable of. Because when you're there as the teacher, they're able to get the help they need. Of course, when they're working independently, then we ratchet the level back. Okay, so let's get back to that question of how can you move them along rapidly, and what would the plan be? So first of all, if you're unfamiliar with Reading Simplified, I want to invite you to check out our website. Let me get the right page up here. It would be readingsimplified.com. And I'll show you two places where you can learn about the core activities that you would need. Now, this teacher would need 3 core activities. Those kiddos would benefit from Switch It, Read It for a little while, and then Sort It. So if you go to the readingsimplified.com website, and you go to Start Here. Where is that? Can you see it? Yeah, Start Here. That would be one place to learn about those 3 activities: Switch It, Read It, and Sort It. Or you can go over here. You wouldn't need this first one, but this sidebar gives core instruction about these core activities that will move the needle for those kiddos and solve the underlying decoding problem that they have. So this one would be one that I would highly recommend. Our #1 hack for solving decoding challenges, that's Switch It. And then solve your student's blending problem, that is Read It. And then the third and final activity would be how to get long vowels to stick fast. So those 3 activities will just blow the sound-based decoding foundation problem that they have out of the water. That will really solve it quickly. And let me show you the general progression that we teach here at Reading Simplified so that you can move them rapidly, because I know it is very counterintuitive. So let me pull that up. This would be the classic streamlined pathway, or a one-page view of a scope and sequence of a sort that kids would move to from level 1 to level 12 and become not so good readers to pretty good readers on their way to fluency. This pathway, coupled with those 3 activities, will give kids the foundation that they need. So I will just briefly talk about this. Of course, we go into a deep dive on this inside the Reading Simplified Academy. So step 1 would be reviewing short vowels, and with the activity Switch It and Read It, that would be super helpful. But then starting at step 2 already, we are working with the long vowels or other advanced phonics. So 1 week would be spent on the O sound and its various spellings, like the O in go, the O in home, the O in boat, the O in show, and the O in Joe. Then the next week would be the E sound, the E in he, the E in each, the E in field, the E in sleep, etc. So each week you're learning a new sound and various spellings, and the activity Sort It will help solidify that information. But there's one other critical piece beyond just the activity Sort It that kind of ties in with what she was saying. She was saying she was having the kids read leveled readers, and they have a place, but I don't believe they have a place when kids are far behind, because when they're far behind, 99% of the time they lack a sound-based decoding system, and that lack of that strong sound foundation in decoding inhibits their ability to memorize words or have word identification, which inhibits their ability to become fluent, which then inhibits their ability to be good at comprehension. So it all comes back to that sound-based decoding foundation. So Sort It alone, in other words, will not get this phonics to stick. The kids also need to read text that is aligned with the sound they're working on. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So say we're on week 5 here, and it's the I sound. So I would recommend some, not all, but some of the text that those kiddos should read would be I sound text that focus on that spelling, that sound and all of its spelling patterns. And that's one thing that we provide in the Reading Simplified Academy. So in this reader's question, she was asking, is this going to suit my situation? So I just wanted to show you in a way how it may suit her situation and maybe suit yours. And let me just see, and we got Maiwa and Stacy and Flora in the house. Shirley, welcome. And so if you have any questions or comments, let me know. So then what does the I sound text look like depending on what grade level? So if you are a member of the Reading Simplified Academy, you would have access to these types of reading materials. So if you were teaching, say, in her case, so she's talking about 4th graders reading at the 2nd or 3rd grade reading level. So then she would pick out like this packet. It's 2nd to 3rd grade reading level, and it's the I sound. So she would have resources like this. This would be the sorted page that she would be working on. Notice how the words are slightly harder than they would be for a kindergartner or a 1st grader. They would even include some multisyllable words like provide and scientist. And but then she's also going to read some I sound text. Now, if this one was too babyish for her kids, maybe she wouldn't read it. But we definitely have some that would be acceptable to most older kids. And I want to show you the one that is one of my favorites. The I sound here from the story called The Island. So look at the I sound words that are in this text. My eyes open and I see the sky. The night is nearly over. It is almost light. I arrived on an island by myself, completely alone. Why am I here? And so it's very long, and there's a lot of words on the page, and it's got a lot of I sounds, so it's more appropriate for an older reader. But we have the same text with the I sound focus for 1st graders. So here we go again. Here's the island, but check it out. It's a lot easier. My eyes open and I see the sky. The font is bigger. The night is over. It is light. I am on an island. Why am I here? How much time has passed? So depending on your level of reader, you can find a text in the Reading Simplified Academy that will focus on the sound that the students are working on that week, and then give them enough practice on that sound so that it starts to stick. And that's what's missing in a lot of reading programs. We go from doing a little word work to reading texts that don't line up with that word work, so the kids don't get the opportunity to practice sufficiently to get the transfer. And we really need that transfer. Now, I'm not saying that the kids would read these types of mostly decodable texts or text targeting one sound forever. This is just a season. And again, I'm encouraging you to think about it as maybe as brief as 12 weeks. Sometimes you might need to review something. Maybe you get to level 4 and the kids are starting to get, slow down with their memory. And so maybe you take 2 weeks on level 4 and reviewing levels 1, 2, and 3. But generally aiming for one sound a week and doing lots of sorted pages, lots of reading of text with that target sound, and then reviewing each week the older stuff, and then keep continuing to grow. Then soon the kids will be into more authentic literature, and they can read chapter books like Cam Jansen or Magic Tree House, or high-low readers that are good for whatever your students' interests are. Okay, so I'm just checking the comments here to see we've got going on. Let me know if there's anything that I could, if you have a question, or if you want to encourage this teacher about your experiences trying to kind of accelerate the kiddos. So let's go back, see if what I've answered so far. So I was trying to get at initially that one element that in her question about, do you do just at their level, or do you do grade level material? So I do encourage you to focus first on shoring up the sound-based decoding problem and getting that foundation really solid. And so you still have plenty of time, by January, you would then be moving into more and more challenging material, because you'd solve the decoding problem, not kind of gloss over it and try to deal with the upper level issues when the foundation is correct. But then definitely start to challenge them with harder and harder reading material, and give them a lot of support. So scaffold them with comprehension, scaffold them by priming them with the words ahead of time. Use materials from the state assessment, but also use other great literature. And of course, you have opportunities to do read alouds all year long that are really high, because kids can handle at least 2 years above their age level many times with books that they're exposed to. So, hey, Jean and Kate and Fleur, glad you are here. So her first question, I hit on that as quickly as I could. And then, and the second one, how do you prepare the kids for the state assessments? I'm not going into too much depth with that, but I do agree that you don't want to ignore it, of course, but shore up the foundation and then do higher level things as they get the hang of how to read, really. And age appropriateness, I tried to deal with that. In the Reading Simplified Academy, we have a lot of varied levels, and we have a lot of resources. But you wouldn't have all the resources in the world inside our membership. So definitely finding high-low readers is really popular, a really great way of supporting kids. Again, especially when they get past that first 12 weeks. Okay, I'm going to go back to that streamlined pathway if I can. Having a little technical problem here. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, after those 12 weeks, then branch out. Give them some things at their level, give them some things above their level, and lots of high support. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about one teacher's question about how to handle kids in the 4th or 5th grade who are several years below grade level. And this is near and dear to my heart, because really it's what set me on this path to be here with you today. 20 years ago, I was a 6th grade teacher, and my students were reading at the 4th grade level on average, and then I was looking high and low for resources, and it was very confusing, and I was frustrated. And then even the second year in that school, I got kids who couldn't even read Hop Pop by Dr. Seuss, so I really was scrambling and finally found something that made the difference for them, and I kept learning more about it and pursuing it, and that's what I've brought to you today, Reading Simplified. It's intended to be a streamlined approach. So if you're wanting to get into the membership, I just invite you to look into that, because we are open right now, kind of a back to school open period. We normally open it sort of periodically for different cohorts. But a teacher asked me about opening it so for back to school, and I realized, yeah, that's a good idea. So if you go here again to readingsimplified.com and go here, you would be able to find out more about what's inside the Reading Simplified Academy, and whether you would be ready to become a member and learn this whole system, and then also get those differentiated resources, because we have K through 5 grade level or reading level resources, and we also give you tips about where to go to get other resources. So that's there for you if this is the right time for you. And we also take purchase orders from schools. You would just reach out to me at our email or to Kayla, and that would be, if you're not on our reading list, our email list, just go to readingsimplified.com, and anything that you put your name in for to get a freebie, you'll get on our email list. So you could do a purchase order that way. So let's see, have I covered the different questions from her? And I'll see if you guys have any other comments or suggestions. Have you found these activities to be successful? Are you moving your kids forward? We'd love to hear from you, because some of you are brand new to Reading Simplified. Some of you have been doing it for several months or years. Now we've got some folks that have been doing it for a few years. Okay, we've got Allison and Felica. Did I say that right? And Alita, welcome back. So it doesn't look like there's too many questions. Thanks for the love. So we've talked about the streamlined pathway, how that can make things easier. Make sure you understand that there are not that many activities that you need to know, to learn, to be able to get kids to have a strong sound-based decoding system. So if you just go over here to our readingsimplified.com blog and find the Switch It activity here, and the Read It activity here, and the sorted activity here, that will break through a lot of decoding problems. Once the decoding is starting to make sense, and they're processing sound and symbols more rapidly and more effectively, then sight words start to stick, and then they become fluent, and then they can read widely, and the words will stick because they're the sounds and symbols are more clearly processed in their brains. And if you don't want to go read blogs and try to figure this out, we also have a complimentary workshop. So you could also go to readingsimplified.com/event, and then you'd be invited to that workshop where you learn about those 3 activities: switch it, read it, and sort it. In fact, we call it 3 activities a day to keep reading difficulties away. So we've got lots of different ways for you to learn about these core activities because they really move the needle rapidly. Basically, keep in mind what you have to do when you have a struggling reader. Say the class is learning at this pace. The average kid who's on grade level is learning at this pace, but this other group of kids is behind. How can they catch up? They can't catch up if they keep learning at the same pace, right? They have to learn faster than the average child. That is a daunting task. That's why so often we're not moving the needle, because we're not doing something radical enough to get the struggling readers to be at a faster trajectory for learning than the typically developing readers or above average readers. That is a big issue with how most of our systems work in most of our schools. We have to do some things radical to change the trajectory in a big way to get the kids who are 2 years behind to catch up and then to keep up. And the Reading Simplified activities do solve that fundamental problem of decoding weaknesses rapidly, so then they can start reading more and more. Along the way, definitely you'll need to encourage them to find out what they love to read. So the activities alone are not enough, especially if they're older. They have more resistance to reading, right? I was a 6th grade teacher. I've worked with middle school. I've worked with high school. They can have a lot of resistance. So we might have to put on our detective hats and do something creative to figure out how to motivate them. But once they have the skills, many kids will turn it around because they realize, oh, I didn't know it was this easy. I didn't know I could figure this out. And now I see it's happening. And I want what other kids want. I've been wanting this for a long time, and now you've finally opened the door for me. So a lot of kids can just be turned on to read when they realize, oh, they are accelerating rapidly. But then they still do have to read and be inspired to read and want to read widely, because they cannot catch up overnight with just solving the decoding problem. Then they have to read widely. So I hope that addresses partly what Gail is talking about. She says she thinks it's important that what they're reading is of interest to them. So find a program, and I can't read the rest of it, but something about definitely their interests. And maybe when you're giving them decoding text, give them a choice of 2. Would you like to read this one or this one? They all are going to have the I sound because that's what we're working on this week. And then give them a choice. That's particularly helpful for older kids. And then also read aloud to them things that are of interest, and then give them opportunities to read other things that maybe aren't targeted just to that sound. And then certainly after an aggressive period of remediation, get them starting to read more and more broadly. So I hope this has given you some ideas for addressing this issue, because it's not unique. It's tragically very common that many of us are facing classrooms with kids who are way behind grade level. And finally, I would just end, if you don't know how to kind of group kids, that this last post right here is all about grouping for small group instruction, so you can get their needs met while the other kids are doing something independently that's also at their reading level. So those are some of the core things that make the Reading Simplified system accelerate kids rapidly. And I hope that you will give it a try. And if you have given it a try, share what you're finding, because you can inspire another teacher out there to make a difference in her classroom and not be so frustrated and, as Karen said, overwhelmed, because this job is hard enough. We just teaching kids today. We don't need to make reading as complicated as we've made it. So thanks for tuning in. We're also going to be going live tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, to share lesson plans, a whole week of lesson plans for nearly new beginners. Last week was brand new beginners, kids who might not know any letter sounds. And this week it's for nearly new beginners. So come back for our regularly scheduled show on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and you'll have a chance to get those free lesson plans. So thanks so much for being here.